really fun to be here and hear about what's going on in New York. I feel like I need to set the context a little bit for Portland. Portland is not New York. It is a town of 600,000 people. We have really different urbanism issues there than here. And so our food cart scene looks really different from the one here. And so I'll try to explain what those differences are. But one of the issues that we have is, like many, if you think more of like middle America and regular cities, like the issues that they face is around getting enough people out on the streets and having like street vibrancy. Like that's not something that's a huge problem here. And Portland is doing a really great job compared to a lot of other places around the country. But we could use some more of it. And so, so our food carts have been really successful in doing all of the things that food carts are known. The arrows, right? Is it right? Anyhow, so. You know, like William White or Gene Jacobs have always advocated for food carts being the most, wonderful thing for bringing people together, and that's what they do in Portland. And one of the things that's really different about the food carts in Portland than it is here or in a lot of other places is that they are on private property for the most part. So we do have food carts that operate in the public right-of-way, like on sidewalks, and we have a few mobile food trucks, but we don't have a lot of them. And there is a slightly higher level of regulation associated with being like a mobile unit and being on the sidewalk, but there are probably about 16 maybe sidewalk vendors in the city, and we have close to 700 food carts that operate on the private property. And that has grown like exponentially, well not quite exponentially, it's doubled from 2006, about 300 food carts, to 2010 to 600 food carts, and now we have about 700. Yes! Okay, so that was the slide. And so you can see what barely here is that they line the perimeter of the surface parking lots, right? So terrible thing to have in your urban centers are these surface parking lots, not very pedestrian friendly. And so instead you get these like little mini storefronts that like pop up on the edge of the perimeter. And they're still functioning as surface parking lots. You can see a car there. So it's dual function. So the key, you might wonder, how do food carts operate on private property and not like have an enormous amount of regulation like any other restaurant would have. And that's because they are mobile. So they are called technically stationary mobile units, which I get a kick out of. So as long as they have tires, they don't have to be inflated. They can be on blocks, but as long as in theory they can move at a moment's notice, then they are indeed mobile. And so as long as they are a vehicle that's on private property, they're not subject to building code. So the convenient thing about it is that they are still, have the same health and safety regulations as a restaurant would. They, in fact, in 1997, combined the health code for restaurants and food carts. It's the same set of regulations for the most part. So you're getting the assurance of the same level of quality as you would as a restaurant, as in a food cart. So this is a highly, so there's this planning framework, right? So you've got regulation, minimal amount of regulation from a health and safety perspective. But it's not anything that was ever planned by the city. We do not have a policy promoting food carts. There was never any major initiative to get this going. It all happened very organically and spontaneously. And it was not because of a particular regulation that made it happen, but just convenient loopholes, basically, or this coincidence of regulations that kind of worked out. Another reason that it works in Portland, and I'm sure New York, is we have a really big food culture in Portland. And so as a result, our food carts are like, and I think this is a trend kind of across the country, so I won't say it's totally unique to Portland, but it's like really high quality food. Like, and at this point, the food reviewers in the city don't distinguish between food carts and restaurants when they're giving out reviews at this point. So you can just like read about the latest, like the best burger in town, and they'll just mix in food carts and restaurants all in the same. It's all the same. It's really fun. So the thing about it being on private property is that there's kind of been this evolution of the carts. So the first round started downtown on these surface parking lots, and it was just one vendor that approached the parking lot owner and said, "Hey, can I like park here?" And they pay on average about $500 a month, let's say, that for like electricity and for their space. And so it started with like taking up these surface parking lot spots in downtown. The next wave, it turned out to be vacant lots on the east side of town, which across the river from downtown in Portland. And it became, they kind of circle up the wagons, have a little bit of a courtyard. They have covered seating areas and park benches, and sometimes are frequented by people that do dino tarot. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff that starts to happen in these. Yeah, so you, I actually haven't gone to her, but one of my friends did. You pick the plastic toy dinosaur that most speaks to you, and you get a reading based on that. Yeah. So they're fun places. And the other thing that's really cool, that's kind of related to the food again, is that you can experiment. So in a restaurant, you've got too much money invested to do anything too crazy. But with a food cart, it's really small. You can do a quirky dish, and we have some strange dishes that you can get, or you can just specialize in one thing. If you really just want to do one thing, that's totally possible. There's a woman, Nam, who does come and guy, and she sells out every day. It's incredible. It's one dish. That's all she does. And it's really efficient that way. You don't have space to cook a lot of different things. You really do have to kind of specialize. So independent. So food cart owners are a pretty independent group of people. So there was a study done by Portland State University students on food carts, and when interviewing the vendors, they found that the vendors valued independence even higher than making a profit. So these are people that are tired of working for the man in whatever form that is. There are people, there's one guy that was a VP of a bank, didn't like how it was going. He's now selling hot dogs downtown, loves it. There's other people like here at the Sugar Cube who had worked for a couple of other bakeries and restaurants and was just really frustrated with the system. I mean, the restaurant industry is pretty grueling. It can be pretty hierarchical, and they were just tired of it. They want to just run their own show. And this is affordable enough that it's possible for them to do that. So highly entrepreneurial too. So these are, like, again, this is, something that is not city dictated. These are people that are just doing what they love and have figured out a way to make it work. And the price point has enabled them to be able to do this. So one of the things that I like about it, besides the urbanism, which is really fantastic to see this evolution from, I didn't even talk about the third stage, of the first stage being the surface parking lots, and the second stage being this takeover of vacant lots. The third stage is actually developers doing food cart pods. So when the economy tanked, there are developers that had bought a piece of property, were planning on doing a condo, or they just didn't quite have the funds available to develop something at that moment, and said, what can we do that's going to generate a little bit of income on our property, create community and some amenity for the neighborhood, and decided to do food carts. And so they do like 25 carts, with seating and some amenities. So you get a higher level of amenity with each of these stages, because the downtown ones are really independent one-offs. Like, there's not a lot of coordination between all of the different vendors. And the second stage, you start to get a little bit more coordination. It's a little bit haphazard still, but you do have recycling and composting facilities that are still at all of these sites. And then when you get to the level of the developer-driven ones, and you've got landscaping, you've got power hookups and water utility hookups and the whole thing for all of them. And if they're smart, they're thinking ahead to the building that they're going to develop later and figure out how they can lay the infrastructure for the food carts now that will be able to work with future development. So, and one of the other pieces that's really interesting, besides the urbanism and this price point, is this concept of economic gardening, which I think Jane Jacobs may have coined the term, or at least advocated for it. And that's sort of cultivating, the economics of your city from the grassroots and what's there, and just watering the resources and the entrepreneurs that exist, rather than trying to target some outside industry to come in that's going to save you and save your town and create a whole bunch of jobs. So figure out where the entrepreneurial activity actually is, and then give them the resources to help them grow their business. And probably half of the vendors do have dreams to open a cafe or something someday. So wouldn't it be great if we had more financial resources that would help them do that? The other half, they want to stay food cart owners. They want to close up shop in the winter and go to Thailand or whatever, go to Burning Man, whatever they want to do. It's that's their life. But for others, they want to do something else. And so there's a range. I mean, I think there's food cart and then there's restaurant. But there's this whole big space in between. And so can we help facilitate some of those other spaces and shapes for people to be living and having a business along that continuum where they want to be and where customers want to be. People are really, really dedicated to the Portland food carts, and we have very, very little complaint from the business community or community in general, unlike a lot of other places, because they get such popular support. Not to say that we haven't had some issues, but by and large it's been very popular. So it's been evolving, besides those 3 stages of development that I mentioned. The other thing that's been really interesting with this food cart model is that it's shifted so that other types of businesses are opening up in carts, and including a hair salon and vintage dress shops, a cigarette shop, other things like that. And then it's also, for Portland, this is micro retail. For New York, this is normal, but for Portland, it's kind of a big deal. So people are kind of moving into these kind of micro spaces, again, trying to make some transition between this small food cart and the big expense of opening a restaurant, kind of creating some of these spaces in between. So we're seeing some of this evolution happen. And so finally, again, this is the same streetscape. The car is gone. This particular pod, they're called pods, these clusters of carts, has started along 9th Avenue, jumped up to 10th Avenue, and has encircled the whole of the block. So it's been really fascinating to see this shift, and they're very popular in the core of downtown and on the east side. They're starting to spread further, and it's very interesting to me. I don't know if anyone's heard the term taxpayer building before. This is kind of new to me. But the concept of doing some interim kind of short-term, low-cost type of building that essentially generates enough revenue for you to pay your taxes until such time that the market is ready that you do something bigger. And so I kind of see food carts as Portland's new taxpayer building, basically, and interested to see if it has the potential to kind of make enough change in the neighborhood to create more community and create other kind of development forms. And that would be our mission in Portland. And that's it.